Hello everyone, and welcome back to Dragalia Foundry. After catching up on my banner review earlier this week, it's time for another adventure spotlight. This one has been requested for a while, so thank you for waiting while I worked on it. Today, at long last, I'll be analyzing Sinoa, the Intrepid Scholar. Sinoa has a ton of personality, and her portrait and kit reflect this. Her bio reads, in part, that she's a scholar dedicated to science and magic. Explosions always seem to accompany her experiments, which got her expelled from the Magic Academy. I know that the clumsy scientist persona alone means she's beloved by many of you, but for this video, we'll be focusing primarily on her gameplay performance. Thankfully, Sinoa has a lot to offer in that department. Let's start off with the basics. Sinoa is a natural 4-star Flame Element wand unit. As a wand, she has the valuable skill damage co-ability, which is one of the best for increasing a team's damage output. Sinoa is a support type unit, meaning her total stats are balanced, but they aren't amazing. She ranks 13th in the Flame pool for HP and 12th for strength. Fortunately for Sinoa, stats aren't crucial for her role. You see, Sinoa's game plan is all about buffing others. Sinoa, like Melody and Elisanne, has the uncommon ability to buff others using her first skill. With a few exceptions, first skills tend to charge quickly and can be cast repeatedly in a match. Sinoa's Custom Concoction fits this mold, and it's the primary reason you'd want to build and invest in her. Custom Concoction grants one of 4 random buffs to the entire team. It either 1. Increases strength by 25% for 15 seconds, 2. Increases defense by 25% for 15 seconds, 3. Increases critical rate by 25% for 10 seconds, or 4. Increases max HP by 15% for the remainder of the quest. That last effect can only stack up to 30% extra HP, after which future buffs of that type will grant an HP recovery effect instead. The values I just stated are for Custom Concoction at its final level, which Sinoa must be a 5-star to unlock. To be honest, I was skeptical of Sinoa when she was first released, because I was worried that the erratic nature of her buffs might hold her back and make her inconsistent. There is a 50% total chance of an offensive buff and a 50% chance of a defensive one, but no control over what's being rolled. I also disliked how she couldn't take full advantage of her wand's co-ability with her first skill not being an attack. As it turns out, what mitigates Sinoa's randomness greatly is that her buffs, while variable, last a long time, are for large amounts, and can be cast repeatedly relatively rapidly. This makes her very effective. Without skill haste, Custom Concoction takes between 2 and 3 complete wand combos to charge. Sinoa's second skill, Blundering Bomber, deals decent damage at range, and that's all it does. It's good that Sinoa has at least one attacking skill to take advantage of her co-ability, but it isn't anything special. Blundering Bomber takes between 3 and 4 wand combos to fully charge. Sinoa benefits from casting both her skills on cooldown, but Custom Concoction is really the core of her kit, and Blundering Bomber is more of an added bonus. It could be held as an emergency iframe or to clear out mobs quickly depending on what content you're taking her to and the gear you have equipped. Next though, let's discuss Sinoa's abilities. She has full HP equals strength, sleep res, and if promoted, she can unlock buff time. That last ability is another way in which Sinoa becomes better at buffing as a 5-star. Full HP equals strength is pretty good on wands since it's easy to dodge and keep your distance with them depending on the quest. The amount when fully upgraded, 13%, is also respectable. To maintain this strength passive, Sinoa can top off her own health with her 5-star core flame wand, Terranigmus, or by rolling extra HP buffs on Custom Concoction. A healer teammate can also easily keep her at full HP. In principle, Sinoa's sleep res of 100% would make her best suited for sleep-inducing quests like Wind Imperial Onslaught and Void Zephyr rather than High Midgardsormr's Trial since he inflicts stun. Yet despite her resistance, I would argue that of those three, Sinoa actually performs best against HMS. This is partially because Wind IO tends to end very quickly before her buffs can provide much benefit. Void Zephyr, meanwhile, is fine for Sinoa, but it's probably better to just bring additional sword units instead. HMS works out for her because the fight is longer and ranged units are safe from being stunned very much. Last up, Sinoa has buff time of 20% as a 5-star. This makes her 15-second buffs into 18-second ones, and her 10-second buff to critical rate into a 12-second one. It synergizes with Custom Concoction very nicely. Do note, however, that this ability only applies to buffs cast by Sinoa herself. It doesn't affect buffs granted by any of your other teammates. That means this pretty much only applies to her Custom Concoction. Now, let's take a look at some gameplay footage of Sinoa while I consider build ideas for her. I'm not an expert wand player, but fortunately, spamming the basic attack and casting skills on cooldown isn't too far off the mark with someone like Sinoa. Sometimes I also cast my skills in a less desirable order, so definitely take this footage with a grain of salt. Still, this is a taste of what Sinoa can do against HMS. For builds, this time around, let's start with weapons. The choice here is pretty straightforward. If you're willing to craft a core 5-star elemental for Sinoa because you plan to use her against HMS, or she's just a unit who you really like, do so. The stats and healing skill on Terranigmus are both good for Sinoa. Firefiend's Howl, the 4-star core flame wand, has an attacking skill which is fine for every other scenario. This 4-star wand can even be fine against HMS, technically, although its close-range skill isn't ideal. I'm using it in the video mainly because I don't have the resources to fully invest in my Sinoa just yet. The HMS Bane wand, Scepter of Infinite Fire, is also a solid choice for her against HMS specifically. Next up, let's go over dragons. Sinoa's in a privileged position in that she can use most flame dragons well. This is partly because her contribution to the team via buffs represents a large part of her utility. The other reason she benefits from dragons like Hilda and Prometheus is that she's a ranged unit, so her base defense stat is 8 instead of 10. Depending on her Wormprints, weapon, teammate co-abilities, and facility levels, she might need dragons like that to consistently survive the HMS HP check. When building for HMS, Cerberus and Agni grant Sinoa the most strength, with the trade-off being that you need to either A, use the Glorious Tempest Wormprint, B, use Flash of Genius with a Lance or an Axe teammate around, or C, use both of those two prints. Prometheus and Hilda, meanwhile, can allow Sinoa to be self-reliant with just Flash of Genius. Cerberus and Agni are stronger if you can ensure that you'll always have an Axe or Lance on your team, which isn't so bad with Mim being quite popular, but Prometheus and Hilda are the safer picks. Ifrit is also fine as a cheaper to unbind 4-star dragon. However, in his case, you'll want both Glorious Tempest and Flash of Genius to safely survive regardless of team comp. As before, an Axe or Lance could substitute for Flash of Genius though. All of that said, Flash of Genius is a great Wormprint for Sinoa, so it's not a big cost to run it. It can grant her 20% extra strength when her combo count is 15 or higher. The basic wand combo lands 13 hits, so it's fairly easy to achieve and maintain this effect on a wand, especially as a ranged unit against HMS. This second ability of Windrest is also important to help ensure Sinoa's survival, as already discussed. If possible to do so with your chosen dragon, I like running Heralds of Hinamoto with Flash of Genius. This is because the 6% skill haste on Heralds is exactly enough to let Sinoa use her first skill after 2 5-hit combos plus 1 Force Strike. The 30% skill damage also helps with her Blundering Bomber. If the setup you're using demands that you run Glorious Tempest, then you can consider getting creative with your second slot. If your Sinoa lacks strength, you could double down on buffs with the Bella Thorna Wormprint. It adds 20% buff time, and it's one of the few 3-stars worth keeping since, except for shadow units, it's the only way to increase buff time via prints right now. With Bella Thorna and her innate buff time passive, Sinoa's buffs extend to 21 seconds for strength and defense, and 14 seconds for critical critical rate. Since my own Sinoa is pretty budget, this is the print combo I used in the video. You could also mix and match these or try other options, for instance Flash of Genius plus Bellathorna. When it comes to teammates, Sinoa has some clear standouts. Gala Cerise is a perfect match for her thanks to skill haste, but primarily because Cerise's Brilliant Bolt increases in damage for each buff she has. Besides that, Sinoa can use Axe or Lance partners, as mentioned earlier. Her skill damage co-ability is at its best when these units have multiple attack skills like Vanessa and Mim do. If I had to choose though, Vanessa seems slightly better for a subtle reason. As a close range fighter, she's very good at baiting High Midgardsormr's attacks, directing them away from her ranged teammates. A good baiter, Marth in this footage, allows Sinoa to combo and buff unimpeded without any fear of accidentally getting stunned. Finally, let's talk competition. This is where, unfortunately, Sinoa is not as stellar as she once was. In the early days of HMS, back when we could only equip one Wormprince and lack dragons like Prometheus or HBH, Sinoa was the premier ranged unit. She was the only unit with sleep res reliably accepted into pubs and was highly regarded because her buffs, even the max HP buff, could make the fight a breeze. In a world of Yuden, Makoto, Vanessa, and Verica being the only 100% stun res units, Sinoa was a gem. Due to the lack of dual prints and facilities, her one big weakness was that she needed very high investment. Nowadays, though, HMS has been broken wide open. You're not guaranteed to always find a Vanessa in pub since so many units are viable, but at least you'll see plenty of Mims thanks to her popularity. You might have a Valentine's Hildegard on your team instead of a Verica, meaning a failed bait could stun you and, with no cleanse, possibly spell your doom. Moreover, you might group into a room with other ranged units like Valentine's Ezolith, Student Maribel, or Gala Cerise and not have a baiter. We also have a consistent melee buff bot in the form of Marth, whose Fire Emblem skill is excellent. In short, Sinoa no longer has the special niche she once did. The fight is easier too though, so this doesn't make her bad. She can still work fine, it's just harder to recommend her in a world where people have access to so much more. Even Xuan Song with her debuff seems like a very good alternative if you wish to promote someone for High Midgardsormr specifically. Units with debuffs are also better than Sinoa in Raid since debuffs benefit all 16 adventurers while her buffs only affect your own party. To get even more specific, consider the other two Flame Wands, Zethia and Student Maribel. Zethia can reach 100% stun res as of the Wormprint update, her co-ability can hit 15% now like Sinoa, plus she has a skill damage passive and 2 attacking skills. Student Maribel meanwhile has 100% stun res, she charges her S1 faster than Sinoa, and it both deals damage and has a 50% chance to debuff defense. That debuff means, in a roundabout way, Maribel helps your whole team much like Sinoa. Sinoa may edge out Zethia in expectation, but due to the random nature of her buffs, she's also less consistent. So it's kind of a toss-up in my opinion. The comparison with Maribel is starker. Unless you're using Sinoa for HP or defense buff shenanigans with say 100% skill prep, then I think Maribel is the clear winner. Ultimately, Sinoa isn't a bad unit, and her emphasis on buffs sets her apart. The main issue compared to when she was released is simply that there are just so many fantastic flame units available now. Of course, if you love Sinoa, then by all means promote her and take her to HMS. I'm confident she can succeed here, and hopefully the gameplay footage helped to show that. In a battle that lasted 3 minutes and 20 seconds, I was able to use her Custom Concoction 12 times for 4 strength buffs, 2 critical rate buffs, 1 defense buff, and sadly 5 HP buffs. You could also see how impactful a timely buff can be. For instance, I rolled defense right before the initial Tattered Sky and Storm Chaser sequence, and I rolled strength during break. Sinoa's buffs, together with Marth's, were also excellent for powering up Cerise. There's a lot to like about Sinoa as a character, so even if you didn't pull the new Maribel, consider giving her a look. It remains to be seen how she'll perform in the upcoming Mercurial Gauntlet mode, but you never know, her buffs might come in handy for your Flame team depending on how it shakes out. And well, that's about all I have to say on Sinoa. I promoted her myself to solo HMS and thankfully no regrets so far. Eventually, perhaps I'll even go all the way and craft a 5-star weapon for her. Of course, many of you also expressed some interest in Sinoa, so I'd love to hear your thoughts as well. Do you like her? Did you promote her? Any insights to add? Be sure to let us know in the comments below. Otherwise, everyone, that's going to do it for this Adventure Spotlight. Thank you so much for watching, take care, and I'll see you next time.